Hey, good morning everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss Pre-Market Report for Friday, April 27th, 2018. Happy Friday everyone. I'm Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Here's a look at the daily time frame of the ES, and what we see here is a little bit of a push back in the opposite direction from where it came. It a couple days ago came down into 2616, the lower 25% key level here of the key range, and is now bouncing right back up. So we're seeing a nice little move back toward 2703 right now. As long as price continues to hold above the previous session's midpoint, overall this thing should continue pushing higher short term. But what I mentioned before is we're still in the middle of the range, and again, while this is a short term 2 to 3 day move up to this point, it could just turn right back around and continue to chop around this area. It's really not committing to direction right now, and we still have to look for the edges to play bigger, wider moves, or for expansion to see a multi-month directional trend develop. In this case right now, we're basically just going sideways at the moment, and until we really see some sort of major directional conviction, we're going to continue to chop a little bit sideways. So we got to continue to be disciplined about being patient for the best opportunities. Right now, the best opportunity is flowing to the upside over the next couple of days into 2703. Failure to hold, though, that 2660 could open up a return to low. So that's going to be the bailout point. All right, taking a look here at the NQ. You'll notice the NQ has also gotten a very nice bounce. A couple of days ago, we had great rejection tails across tech, and that led to a nice 2-day bounce. Again today, generally going to be biased to the upside. Pullbacks could still be defended as deep as 66.53 for a continuation up, and we're looking for a test of the recent high. We could even get as high as that FOMC key level from March 21st, that's 69.17. But again, right now, looking for some short-term strength toward that upper area, and then from there we could be headed right back down as this thing continues to trade in a range. Here is a look at crude oil. Now crude oil, if you look at, like, for example, the 15-minute chart, a lower time frame chart, you basically see we've had a very tight trading range that has developed. Here it is, from that high to this low there. And what's happening here is price is trading on one end and making a flow to the other, trading on one end, flowing up, chopping down, and back and forth. And it's building out some very, very nice energy here over the last several days. You can actually look on a 5-day range average. The last 2 days have printed below 65% of ADR. So again, anytime you get to that narrow of a range, and that's in a dropping volatility environment, it's indicative that compression will likely lead to expansion at some point. So again, we could be due for major expansion here ahead. Anytime we get narrow like this, though, I have a tendency to believe that the first move is a failure at times, and that leads to a breakout in the opposite direction. And so usually I let the direction of the trend tell me. For example, this direction is going higher. Here's the range. If we were to break down first, I'd be cautious and instead be looking for a failure, because if it breaks down and then closes back above here, that could be a significant move in the opposite direction. That could easily get us 70.41 and perhaps even higher. So again, we have a narrow range. We're likely going to be stuck in this range for a little while longer, but when we do see expansion, it could be quite significant. So continue to watch this range in crude oil. Here is gold. Again, gold has been flowing lower. This has been in a 4-month trading range right here. I mentioned before that on this day, once we started to break down here, the idea was likely that we were headed to 1300 to 1306, and once we get there, it could be a great opportunity to look for a fade back to 1338 and perhaps even higher. At some point we will see expansion from this range, but you got to continue to look to fade the edges until proven otherwise, until that expansion occurs. And so right now we haven't seen expansion. We haven't really seen a want to go. This is a pretty decent sized range and has contained price for 4 months. It's not going to last forever, but for right now, the primary idea is a little bit more downside and then look to fade it back up. If it fails to hold and breaks through 1300 and has a huge stop run day where it closes near lows, that could be a transition where we're now headed down toward 1200 and 1240. So that's going to be what we'll be looking for. Taking a look now lastly at Bitcoin. Again, Bitcoin has been flowing higher. Very nice move. The previous 2 days have been a pullback phase. We talked about this pullback phase and how it could lead to another buying opportunity. I mentioned we could pull back as deep as 7,500 and still be a buying opportunity right now for Bitcoin. So again, this has been flowing nicely higher. It's currently trading 9,350. 8,500 is a short-term level now that if price were to test it, it could still be bought for a continuation. Failure to hold that level, a break, could be significant and could really challenge 7,500. But everything's flowing to the upside right now. Again, the idea here was that from this narrow squeeze and the breakout, we were looking for any pullback to 7,250 for a continuation to 9,500 to 9,920. And then we were looking for perhaps a little bit of chop and a continuation to 11,300 to 1,200. That's the wider range. And so we just did the first half of that. We could see a little build out followed by a continuation toward the upper end of the range. Nothing's really going to really get going until price can really get above 12,000. Above that level is really where things get hot and heavy and you start returning to former glory. But until then, the price range is below it from 700 up to 1,200, basically 5,800 up to 12,000 rather. So basically this is the range. We're flowing to the upside. We'll continue to keep an eye on it as it develops. Alright, that is it for now. Let's see how this plays out heading into the rest of the session. Good luck, trade well, and happy Friday.